wonderful breakthroughs. And while they are, this is a double-edged sword and one that will stab us in the eye and not give us a clear vision, I can tell you. DARPA has been involved, starting with just microcircuits that would allow them to track special forces, congressional leadership. The Mexican government, even 200 of their top bureaucrats were implanted with chips years ago so they could track all their movements. These are much, much more sophisticated, and they go back to the idea of controlled effects, which came out of at least DARPA as well as the Electromagnetic Directorate of the Air Force. Back in June of 2004, there was an article published in Technology Horizons, produced by the Air Force, talking about this very thing, and the idea of creating synthetic memory where you would, the good side is they're saying, well, we can knock out all this war trauma and, sort of wipe the memories clean of foreign fighters, coming back, into the U.S. The problem is, what else do you wipe clean?
It's total mind control.
This is the worst of the worst. The idea of creating synthetic memory. What's going to happen in courtrooms when people raise their right hand and swear that what they say is true when they can't distinguish the synthetic memory from the real memory? This is the big challenge for this republic, is what is it going to do as they roll each of these things out, and how much more can the government conceal when they can literally wipe and replace memory? This is where it's headed. This is where it's going. Beyond that is the idea of synthetic telepathy, which are contracts that were let by DARPA to the University of California several years ago. You and I reported on this. These have moved forward to actually allow you to transfer signals, brain signals, so you can actually read a person's thoughts at a distance and send them information at a distance. Now, for communication with our own troops, some people may see some merit in this. From the standpoint of foreign troops and intervention, imagine a foreign army all of a sudden having thoughts of God telling them what to do or what have you. These are the very kind of things that we've been talking about for over 18 years.
And everything used on the military and deployed overseas will be deployed here first. The microwave guns, the tracking systems, this is all ready. I remember DARPA, it was like 14 years ago in the Baltimore Sun, and it was like a science fiction movie back then. It was like Twilight Zone music was playing almost when I read it on air. They said, DARPA's practicing with different wavelengths out of cell tower arrays to calm the public. And then I read that on air, and it sounded crazy, but it was in the news as a test. How far advanced is this really from the patents and the research you've done? Obviously, if they're telling us about it now, how far along is this attack on free will?
They've already engaged it, both in the private sector and the public sector. To change emotional states of the population is really easy. And you can even go back to Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, Between Two Ages. When he was at Columbia University in the early 70s, he published a book where he talked about mind control. In fact,
technotronic era.
Right. And you can look at that book. And he, if people don't remember, he was National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter. He's one of the founders of the Trilateral Commission. He is a globalist of globalists. This guy, if you read that book today, you'd swear it was a history on what happened in terms of technology, society, and politics literally around the world, because everything he predicted came true. This area, goes back decades, but where it is now is a very, very fine science. We've been able to replicate various functions of the brain, be able to do this synthetically through electronic circuits. And the resolution, if you will, the ability to do this at a finer and finer and finer level increases as our computer power increases. So when you think about this, to do what the brain does, say in 1980, no way. The technology wasn't there. To do it now with the advent and the emergence of supercomputers, you're going to be able to create machines that think like humans, that act like humans. You're going to be able to download your memory set.
Let me ask you this. If they're 25 to 40 years ahead, depending on the technologies we know about in corporate and institutional redoubts, I see the internet, Dr. Begich, with the billions of people that are interfacing. It can predict the future, almost 100% mass movements, 97% they admit in individual movements. That's almost beyond human intelligence in some respects. Obviously, ours is much more advanced in other ways to, to be able to think of new things, to have love, to, tell what's good from bad, to enjoy a sunset. But isn't the internet interfacing with humans, in my view, a new life form and is already artificially intelligent?
Yeah, I would say so. In fact, if you really look at it as it expands, it will never be 100%. And that's the thing about this. It will never have 100% predictability because of the emotional factors and just the human factor.
The butterfly factor.
But we're going to become more and more reliant. And that reliance is going to lead to judgments that are not necessarily the right ones because they won't have that human factor in. I mean, on one hand, things are expanding, but at the same time as they're expanding, the secrecy syndrome within government is expanding as well. That's the root of the problem. Government cannot be trusted. My family's been in it. I've been exposed to it my entire life. The first advice that my brother would give you as a U.S. Senator is, don't trust any of them. And that's coming from a guy on the inside. And the reality is, special interests continue to drive way too much of our public policy.
And they're blinding themselves because they only care about their one issue. That's scientific smarts, but not wisdom. How does it create ripples? I want to come back with Dr. Nick Begich straight ahead to talk about future trends, how do we save humanity, your phone calls, and then more on the resources of the United States and North America that could create an incredible new future. In Africa and Australia, worth even more. And why strategically are the globalists trying to keep the United States suppressed? It's undoubtedly going on. But Carrie and, well, Jim's first, and Chad and Sue and Chris, we'll get to all of you coming up and your different topics, wild card topics, to take Dr. Begich in other directions. But in the 5-6 minutes we've got left in this segment, what are the big future trends? Positive, negative? Where do you see the establishment at right now in their worldview? What do you expect to unfold?
I think, this idea of mind effects certainly is a big one. We have the worldwide internet, which we talked about in the last segment, but they're actually predicting, and a PBS special was the worldwide mind, where every human mind was connected in the same way the internet is connected today. Now, fundamentally, I think we already are connected, in one sense, but I don't think we need government or private sector connecting all the brains in the world and hacking them. The idea of creating synthetic memory, the idea of networking all the minds in the world, this is a trend that I think we need to very carefully look at and I think resist. I think the fact of the matter are there are some places that even though we can go there, we should not go there. And this is one of them. The idea of trampling over free will, trampling over the mind and using mental disorders, traumatic stress syndrome, these kinds of things as the vehicle for doing that is fundamentally flawed. And it's a Trojan horse that enters our mind, a Trojan horse that we need to really recognize. And I don't think it needs to be an initiative that we should be spending a lot of time and effort on. I mean, figuring out how to protect people from these kinds of technologies is more fundamental, as we're not the only country in the world developing.
Exactly, and they already 6-7 years ago put passive MRI scanners in airports to, quote, scan brains. So this is way down the line. They're just doing it. And how dare you, doctor, be so extreme as to say we shouldn't all have brain taps? Of course the government needs to read our minds. That's freedom.
I think we need the opposite. I think we need cameras in every government office to see what's going on.
Yeah.
I think we need microphones in every government office to know what's going on, because these people work for us. They think we work for them. This thing is upside down. You want to get accountability in classrooms? Stick a camera in every classroom and give every parent the code to see what their teacher's doing every day. You want to see responsive government? Let's look at them. Turn the cameras the other direction. That's what we need in the United States. That's what we need in the world. We need whistleblower mechanisms. We need ways to get the truth out and for it to be credibly dealt with. And, your show has been one of the few voices in America over all these years that have been able to do that and be consistently correct, because time proves all. We've been in this a long time, you and I and a lot of others, and we're still standing because the facts speak for themselves. And what you report, what I report, is based on that evidence. I mean, the stuff we're talking about today, much of it was in the book, Controlling the Human Mind, that you carry there, that InfoWars. This book is 250 source documents, most of it government and academic reports showing the dark and the bright side of this technology. But it's up to us as individuals to take and maintain control of our minds and our information. The internet providers think that they own the information. This is upside down.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
they're the real NSA. Back in 60
it's
seconds.
It's about our information, about our lives.
It is. Stay there, Doc. Back in 60 seconds. Great point. We'll be right back. Third hour.
This is GCN, the Genesis Communications Radio Network.
Why does the United States spend the largest percentage of GDP in the world on healthcare? Why do we have the highest cancer rates on the planet, the highest rates of diabetes, autism, and every other major disease? It all comes down to one thing. We are what we eat. Our food is devoid of nutrition and processed with poisons and additives. Our water is filled with toxic poisons and big pharma runoff. All of this has been engineered by design. We can turn the tide against the eugenicist by giving ourselves the nutrients our body desperately needs. To learn more, visit InfoWarsHealth.com. The site is literally packed with audio and video featuring top health professionals who don't bow down to big pharma. The fight against the New World Order starts with you, and you can't stand against the machine if you're sick, tired, and obese. When you visit InfoWarsHealth.com, be sure and check out the catalog with nearly 400 life-changing products and get free shipping when you sign up for AutoShip.